It's Wednesday, November 15th, and you made it, folks. We are here. It's the About to Break podcast.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
I'm so excited to have on the show this week my buddy Daniel Ornellas, music producer from Nashville, originally from South Africa. You're going to love him. Before we get into the program, there are a couple things I do want to mention. First of all, I want to thank everybody who came out to Jokers and Aces. It was so fun. An $8 show that featured Derek Hughes, Emily Heller, Dave Ross, David Stryker, Jimmy H., Eddie Firth, and myself. And Eddie opened the show by having me play a game where I got to guess what songs people were humming. And if you know me, you know I love music, and I geeked out, and I got every single one right. And people thought it was set up, but it wasn't. It was so fun. If you haven't come out to one of these shows yet, our next one is December 10th. It's at 7 p.m. at the Nerdist Showroom in Meltdown Comics. You can get tickets to that show by going to Nerd Melt or check back here. In a couple weeks, we will have a link on abouttobreakpodcast.com. But thank you to everyone who came out to that. Big thank you to all of the producers of the show. I can't thank you enough. Those of you who are going on to our Patreon site and who are donating each month to the show. We just got another couple producers to the show. In fact, it is literally a couple of producers. It's our friends Dan and Katie Snyder. You heard them on the podcast for Paper Lights. Dan was on the show, and their music is so amazing, and they're just brilliant people, and I can't wait to go see them in a couple weeks when we go to Atlanta. But thank you to them. Thank you to everybody who is helping produce this show. If you want to become a producer, all you have to do is go to abouttobreakpodcast.com and click on the Become a Producer button for as little as $1 a month. That's right, folks. As little as $1 a month, $12 a year. You can help make this show possible. Thank you to everyone who's giving. It really means a ton, and we so appreciate your support. Next week is Thanksgiving, and we're going to be taking a week off. We only take 2 weeks off a year here at the About to Break podcast. We're taking off the week of Thanksgiving, and we're taking off the week of Christmas. And other than that, we've got killer shows coming up. We're coming back strong for episode 50, folks. My buddy Aaron Abeda from the band No Effects is going to be on the show. You know him as El Jefe. He's their lead guitarist. And then 1 week after that, we're going to have Scott Neary on the show from Scott Neary's Booby Trap. And I'm so excited to bring those conversations to you guys. I'll be performing at Scott Neary's show, The Booby Trap, that's happening on November 29th, Wednesday evening. So if you'd like to get tickets to that, go to theabouttobreakpodcast.com, click on live show, and it will take you there. But right now, I can't wait to share with you this conversation. It was so encouraging, it was so challenging, and it was so enlightening on the area of the business side of show business. You know, we want to be creative. We want to put art out there. We want to get the stuff out of our heads and out into the world so people can experience it. And this conversation with Daniel is chock full of passion, it's chock full of life, and it's chock full of things that we can apply right now to help make the journey a little smoother. I know you're going to enjoy it, and I know you're going to love this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 49 of the About to Break podcast, my conversation with Daniel Ornellas. Daniel, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, man. Good, really good. It's a bit colder in Nashville than when I was with you the last couple of days. We were in Arizona together, but other than the cold, it's a good time.
I know. We were just in Scottsdale for 4 beautiful evenings and 5 glorious days. And I didn't think to do this while we were together. So we're now trying to figure out how to do it over Skype.
Obviously, when you've got the option of lying by the pool with a nice beverage, you're not going to sit in a room doing a podcast.
Yes. So for those of you who are listening, I met Daniel. Daniel's a music producer and a touring musician, plays bass, and pretty much can do anything related to the music business. Helps other people create their works and put them out there for the world. And I met Daniel because oftentimes we do these events where I'm brought in to be the magician guy or the MC, and Daniel's brought in to provide music for the guests. And my goal is that we have a great time, and yet at the end of this conversation are still invited back to do those events.
which is a fine tightrope to walk.
Exactly. You can probably tell from Daniel's accent that he's from Nashville.
Absolutely. I'm 100% Southern.
Yes.
I'm in training. I'm actually from South Africa, but I am in training to be a Southerner. So I've been practicing we're coming into November now, and I have to practice I'm going to get a deer this year, y'all. I'm going to get that deer this year, y'all. But watch out in them woods. There's a big burr back there. Better watch out for that burr. That's supposed to be funny. That's where you laugh. You're laughing but crying in the inside because it's like a dad joke.
No, it's great. Dad jokes are the best, though, man. I think it's 90% of our conversations are just dad jokes.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
But we're both fathers. But most of the time, like today, it wasn't dad jokes. It was dad going, "Get your shoes on. Mom's got to take you out of the house so Dad can record. Come on, kids."
I know that story. My studio used to be in my house for a while, and it was either the work went or our marriage went down.
Right, one or the other. Sometimes both. If you do it right. I am building right now. You know this, but I'm building a studio in my backyard, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, you building a studio?
I am. I'm building it out of a tough shed. Our friend Brenton did that.
That's amazing.
And it inspired me.
I think I saw a little blood blister on your thumb where you might have spanked it with a hammer. Am I correct in guessing?
Yeah. One of the bad things if you're a magician, people look at your hands a lot. And the day before we did our last event together, I slammed a hammer right into my thumb. It was not a good idea. You said you're from South Africa, Cape Town originally. Right. Is that right?
Yeah, we moved out here 16 years ago with my family. With a band called 363, like a 3-piece kind of rock band. And then we toured all over the whole country. I mean, there was only one place that I hadn't toured to, and that was Montana. We've been to, everywhere, Alaska, Hawaii, every single state in the U.S. And about 2 years ago was the first time I went to play in Montana, and I've been 3 or 4 times since then back up to Montana.
Montana's beautiful, man. I had never been until this past summer. It's gorgeous.
It's amazing, man.
It's
the more amazing thing to me is like everyone expects Montana to be big sky, beautiful. The one thing you don't expect is Idaho to be beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
And Idaho, the top end of Idaho, Kamei and Coeur d'Alene and all those places are just every bit as beautiful as Montana. I guess they're on the border up there near Montana. But, you think of what's that guy, the movie with the guy with the glasses that dances really funny. That's down in Idaho.
Napoleon Dynamite?
Yeah, that's what you think of when you think of Idaho, but you never think of like big, beautiful mountains with trout streams and so there's really beautiful parts to both.
You've toured extensively, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the program is not just because of the fun we have when we get together, but you so many people hear like, "Oh, you travel for work. That's so exciting." And my fear is as we paint the beautiful picture of Montana and Idaho that people are going to think that that's what life is like on the road. But you've experienced the years on the highway there.
Yeah, I have when we had at one point in my band that we'd been traveling every weekend. We'd fly out Thursday and we'd fly back into Nashville on Sunday, and we'd do sometimes 4 cities in 4 days.
Yeah.
So those couple of years we were traveling like that, the flying became absolute nightmare. So our road manager, who used to try and negotiate to get our equipment onto the planes, he used to have a 6-meter rule with me, which is like a 6-yard rule, which is I'm not allowed to be within 6 meters of the check-in desk.
Why was that? What would you would screw it up?
Yeah, I'd walk up and she'd say, like, I'd hand my bass guitar in. It's 4 a.m. in the morning. And we've flown on Southwest or whatever airline it is a million times.
Yeah.
And I give them my luggage, and then every single time they check it, and it goes through normally. And then after 3 years of that, suddenly one woman will whip out a tape measure and starting to measure my bass guitar and say it's over, and that I'm going to have to pay $100. And I don't mind if there's rules and regulations, but when the goalposts change the whole time,
right,
which is exactly what happens in TSA. I actually did this trick where I threw a can of tuna in my backpack to see what would happen. And for 3 months, I had it in the backpack and everything was fine. And then one day TSA was like, "This, you cannot travel with it." And I said, "I've been through your scanners for 3 months." And he said, "Well, it's liquid." I said, "If you can drink what's in that can, I'll give you $10. I said, "It's a piece of fish."
It is funny how sometimes they don't care about things at all, and then other times they make the biggest deal out of something that's so insignificant.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, their day. And, you know, sometimes you meet someone that's at TSA that's friendly and they're cool and they check you out and they look. Sometimes they don't even look at your picture when they just pass you through and you go,
Right.
well, what's the good in this?
Right.
And then other times you meet a guy that looks like he's got pictures of 9/11 next to his mirror, and then he wakes up in the morning, he goes,
Not again.
I will not happen on my watch.
That's amazing.
And then he gets out the rubber glove and the whole story just because you might be with a funny accent, and they go, well, this guy's definitely a threat.
Have you ever had the thing where you got detained like a little too long and almost missed a flight or something?
Oh yeah, coming into to the US from other countries, we'd every now and again you'd have a hiccup. The biggest one we had was going into Canada, believe it or not. That was the one we sat around for hours and hours, and the problem was they have a rule where you can have a multi-entry visa,
right?
But if you actually if you travel away from the US and you don't, like, in other words, if you leave America to go somewhere else other than Canada, we didn't know this, but then it nullifies that multiple entry visa and you have to get another one.
Oh, no.
So they asked us as we came in, and it had been a crazy summer. We'd been touring like crazy.
Yeah.
And they said to me, have you been outside of the US to anywhere else since the last time you came into Canada? And I went, no. And then I walked through and they stamped my passport and I was walking off to get my bags.
Yeah.
And then the singer in my band was like, yes, we went to South Africa a few weeks ago to play one show.
Oh, no. But you hadn't even remembered because you just been on the road so much.
I'd forgotten. Yeah, it was like we had so many things. And it was so brief, our little stint. It was 3 days, I think, in South Africa and back.
Yeah.
So they said to us, they said to him, well, you can't come through. And he said he went through and then pointed to me. And then the guys ran after me like I'd gone through with a bomb vest on. they came and they like surrounded me with guns and the whole thing. And they were like, sir. Yeah. And then the guy that was with him said to me, sir, did you or didn't you travel outside of the country? And I said, I don't think so. And then John's like trying to remind me. And as he goes, what about? Then the guy said, shut up, sir. You shut up. Okay, now I'm asking you one more time, sir. Did you or didn't you travel out the country? And I was like, well, let me think about it. I was like, actually, yes, I went to South Africa. And then it was all on, boy. They were like, what? So then the promoter of this massive event we were going to play with like 15,000 people waiting to see us play, they had to get him to drive and to the airport and come and talk to the embassy and get special kind of visas for us to go through just one time.
No.
And then there was this like serious mark on our visa. So from then on, any time we went into Canada, that we'd have to go through the second screening every time for months and months and months every time we went to Canada. So
man,
that's the joys of touring.
I could totally see that though, because you get travel brain. Like after a while, I've on more than one occasion had a connecting flight. You know, I'd fly Southwest, so I always had to do like a connection if I'm going back east. And yes. I literally I had taken a nap on the plane, and I wake up and I get out of the airport and I know I'm supposed to get on another plane. And I'm staring at that big kiosk of all the different flights. And I'm like, crap, where am I supposed to be going? And then I go, I don't even know where I came from. So I had to call my wife on the phone and be like, honey, where am I going?
I love that, man. I've even been on flights before because I travel with a band and everyone's laughing and people are leading me like a bull with like a ring through its nose. And I just get led onto the flight. I don't even know where we're going. And then someone will say, is this your first time going to Dallas? And I'm like, Dallas? And they go, yeah, we're going to Dallas now. And I'm like, oh, no, I didn't realize. But yeah, I've been to Dallas before. Like, how does this guy not know that he's going to Dallas?
How do you work? Because you have a studio like the Franklin Collective, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
Tell people who haven't heard, what is the Franklin Collective? Because this whole idea is just, to me, the most brilliant thing.
Yeah, so we have a group of people that are kind of all creatives that work out of this one space in Nashville, in Franklin, Tennessee. Actually, it's a little bit south of Nashville. And there's two other music producers. One's Michael Farron and the other one's Aaron Tumblin. And then I've got a vocal coach that does vocal training, and he's amazing, Jeff Mathina. And he's in the one room upstairs. And then downstairs is like a big open room, which is used for multiple different things. My wife's an artist. She's a painter. And so she's painted. She does these wine and painting parties with women or whoever wants to come along. Usually it's usually it's like 13 women and one guy.
Yeah.
And then they kind of paint different things. That's called alla prima, and it's
Okay.
actually really cool. And then they use that for video shoots and photo shoots and all sorts of stuff downstairs. So I'm trying to keep it like a creative space. And then we do like beer and hymns evenings. We'll sing hymns.
Beer and hymns?
And have beer and hymns. It's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, we've had events like that are just like open to everyone wants to come along, and we just have fun.
I love that. A lot of the old hymns were actually bar songs they took the melody and made it into hymns, right?
That's why I think it makes so much sense.
It does, right?
Yeah, and I mean, for me, like I grew up as a pastor's son, like a kid of a pastor. So for me, like the idea, because they were very, very strict, in my world back then. Like the first time I was like singing hymns, and everyone around was like tapping the draft and just knocking it back, I started panicking. Like, I'm sure I'm going to hell for this. And then just to be able to relax and say, "Hey, man, these are awesome songs, and beer is awesome," and
Yeah.
it was great. We had fun.
That's fantastic. Literally flowing in the spirits.
That's delicious.
This idea of putting a lot of artists together in one place to work sounds brilliant to me. And yet do you ever get people who, because you're creative, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Let me say it this way. I've always dealt with, as an artist, people think that I can't get work done and be productive because I'm like a creative guy. Have you had to deal with that, especially, running and owning this place that's a workspace for collective artists?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you meet people, and sometimes that are outside of your world.
Right.
And they hear that I'm doing this and that, and then I've recorded this guy and I'm on the road with that, and they go, "So, do you have a job?" I know you do that for fun, but what do you do for income?
Right.
There's a weird kind of, people don't get that you can actually be professional within the art world and actually create income for your family. And like for myself, my wife's only starting now really to earn income from her art, but before that, for the last 15 years, it's all been me looking after my wife and my kids and everybody we've living in. It's not a super cheap area to live, Franklin, but just doing it, and there's a little bit of hustling going on if you're in the music business. You have to learn to hustle and connect with people and do whatever you can. Sometimes, so there's a lot of different hats. So I'll produce records, I'll play on the road, I'll go on and play, and I'll be booked for like a session to play on someone else's record.
Yep.
And you kind of take what you can get, and sometimes you have to be able to say no, if it's not in the right direction. Because being self-employed, the hardest thing is to try and make sure that your trajectory of where you're heading in your life, career-wise, doesn't just end up somewhere weird just because you're saying yes to a bunch of different things.
Man, that's so good. Talk about that, because that's something that I've dealt with a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you think about it, like and this is an interesting thought, because I'm friends with a guy called Josh Shipp, who actually helped me to start a music academy, an online school.
Yeah. And
he's written a book called Jump Ship, which talks about how do you get from working your corporate gig into actually doing what you really want to do, which is, he's a speaker. So he goes and speaks to people, and he's an amazing, like, motivational kind of speaker.
Right.
And he said he's got this book called Jump Ship, and he talks about, getting yourself prepared income-wise and saving enough money and this and that before you actually go and jump ship. And so I said to him, what's the point in that? And he goes, well, the main thing is that if you just decide to cut what you're doing and go and do what you love doing, if you haven't planned for it, he said, then what happens is day one out of the gate, away from being a corporate guy, you're going to have this fear. How am I going to provide? And so what happens is, living in that fear, you're going to get an opportunity to do something. Say, for example, as a musician, I get asked, "Hey, can you come down to this bar over here next door and play a gig every Wednesday? And we can't pay you, but we'll feed you a meal, and you can sell your CDs." So I'm like, "Yes, this is awesome. At least it's something."
Right.
And then I go and I do that. But my actual mission is I actually want to be an independent artist singing my own songs. And so I start doing this cover gig down the road. And then someone else in another bar hears, "Hey, Dan's pretty good at these cover songs. Let's get him to play at our bar." And before you know it, I'm a guy that plays every weekend in a bar. And maybe I'm even earning enough money just to scrape by, but it's absolutely not what I'd set out to do.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm there is because I was actually motivated by fear. If I did have like 6 months of income saved up, and the guy said, "Do you want to come play in the bar?" I'd be like, "Actually, no, I don't really want to do that because my mission is this, and I've got a much more focused kind of landing space of where I want to go with my career." And so you don't just take whatever comes at you. You can say no to stuff because you can decide your direction instead of being fearful and the fear motivates you to jump into the wrong thing.
That's so good, man. I've struggled a lot with that. There's this point that I'm at in my career where I'm doing a lot of events that are paying the bills and I'm enjoying them. Mm-hmm. But my fear is that I'll just settle into doing that when that ultimately isn't the thing I want to end my artistic life doing.
Absolutely.
So there is that balance of going, okay, I got to say yes to certain things that maybe aren't in line with the trajectory, but that fear that someday if you just keep doing that, you're going to, 30 years from now, you'll be doing the same thing you're doing right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, especially often the thing that you end up doing is you become wingman to someone else's thing, and you don't realize that you're actually building their thing, not yours. Yeah. And then their thing kind of gets to a point where they don't need you anymore, and then you're back at 10 years older, and you're back at the same spot again, and you're needing to make a decision right there when you could have made that decision 10 years ago to not do what that guy offered you and go and rather chase what you were doing when you didn't have a whole bunch of kids, or there's just so much to be said about that kind of time frame where you've got to be able to pour yourself into what and sometimes it's not all of your time. Like there's a book called The Cashflow Quadrant.
Okay.
It's the same guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I got a lot of kind of thoughts about that book, how they say you could be working a normal job but investing your money in something else, which is ultimately where you want to be. And so they're saying like, and then the other quadrant, there's 4 quadrants. One of them is you're self-employed. And then the third quadrant is you have your own business. And like a lot of people that are self-employed say, yeah, I've got my own business. And I say, what do you do? And they tell me what they do. And I say, well, if you didn't go to work today, would your business fully function or would you be in trouble? And they go, well, I have to work in order for my business to work. Dude. And I go, no, then you're self-employed. You don't have your own business. If you have your own business, your business will operate without you. You could go on holiday for 6 months and come back and your business is thriving.
Right.
If you're a guy that's wrapped your whole business around yourself, then you've got you're just self-employed. And then so the whole idea of this book is that you want to be investing into something. You can do it from any quadrant, from any of the 4 quadrants. You could be an investor investing, or you could be an employed guy investing, or you could be a self-employed guy or a business owner and invest. But you can still be working for someone else and investing. So I see it in my time. I've got this kind of, I write songs, and songwriting is like one of those things where you can really make zero money from a song. So you can spend a whole day writing a song and the song never ever does anything. Or else you could write that song and it could make me more money in my lifetime than I'd know what to do with.
Right, yeah.
But I have to make sure that I balance my time, because I've met people in Nashville here that'll spend all their days songwriting. In 3 months' time, they have to quit it completely and go get a normal job where they can't write any songs. So I kind of balance my time out to say, I'm going to be producing people's records over this much of my month, which gives me X amount of income. Then I'm going to write songs for other people in this time, and then kind of try and split it up so that it's like blue chip shares as opposed to gold shares. If you invest everything in gold, yes, you'll make some money, but over your life, you might make a certain percentage of money with gold. But if you invest in a little startup company, you can either completely lose that money or you can make a lot of money. So instead of and just diversifying my time in that way with that headspace helps me a lot to kind of hopefully be heading in the right direction.
That's brilliant. So many of the artists that I talk with on the podcast, they are, without intentionally doing this, they've become in the service industry. Yes. They are in the service of playing music live or performing live. And the challenge with that is, like you said, if they don't go to work, their business doesn't happen, because it's based on them going out and working. Whereas what you're saying, from your perspective of being a musician, the difference between writing songs and then performing them live, which requires you to be there, or writing songs that then could end up being mailbox money down the road if it becomes something. Yes. You're still essentially doing the same thing, but you're just shifting your focus slightly so that it could provide for you either at retirement or when you're not on the road. That's brilliant. I'm sitting here going, how can I do that? In my industry.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many ways to do it nowadays with the internet. Like my friend next door here, that I'm helping him to build his online vocal training program, which means that like he'll be in bed sleeping and someone's going to download his program or sign up for his course, and then he's off to the movies, you know. And like you could do that with I don't know what would be in your world, but there's people doing that kind of stuff all the time, and just really winning, you know, at it. And I guess as you got to find different ways. It's kind of guerrilla warfare almost out there, you know. You got to try and work out ways that people are doing something and not doing it well, which is probably the best way to do things,
right?
Or else coming up with something that's new that hasn't been done and then doing that. But most people think that's the only way to do well. And I had a very, very wealthy friend of mine in South Africa was telling me, you know, he said, the worst thing you can do is come up with an amazing idea that nobody's heard of and then try and promote it. He said, because what happens is you have to spend so much money teaching people what it is.
Right.
And then the next guy who's behind you who works out what you're doing and then goes, I can do that too, but I'll do it just a little bit better than that guy.
Yeah.
They're the ones that make the real money from that stuff. But it's interesting stuff.
Man, this is seriously like blowing my mind right now. I think it's so important for artists to challenge their mindset in this, because so often our focus is on creating the art, but if you're not thinking about the distribution or how's it getting to people or what happens once you create it, then, you know.
Absolutely. And I speak to a lot of bands, a lot of people coming in, you know, and artists with my school that I had, it was like for indie artists to try and help them to move forward. I found that the ones that were the most talented, the most incredibly talented, you know, singer, songwriter, or whatever they were, they would be the worst at the business. And then the ones that were like averagely talented, they actually had some kind of business chops. So then we'd give them this course to do, and then they'd come out the other end of it and they'd start to use the techniques and the different skills that we've given them. And then within a few years, they seem to be doing pretty well, which is very sad, because the one that's really should be doing well is the one that is not doing well still, because they still haven't implemented any of the business stuff, because it's just not who they are.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so good at what they do, is because they don't think about anything else but writing songs and singing and making music. So it's like you almost have to find that partnership with people.
Yep.
Have you heard the saying "stick to the knitting"?
No. Stick to the knitting?
The knitting, like
knitting.
If you're knitting a cardigan. So the idea is like someone actually makes cardigans for, you know, beautiful jerseys, or what do you call them, like a sweater. Then they knit them, and they're really talented at that. And then they knit a whole bunch of them, and they get to like 20 of them, and they look so awesome. And someone comes along and says, "Hey man, those are awesome. What are you going to do with those?" And they go, "Well, I'm hoping someone will buy them." And you go, "Well, what are you going to do about that?" So then they get up and they put their needles down and they go walk outside. And they go door to door and they're knocking on doors. And eventually at the end of it all, they've sold all their sweaters and they're super stoked. And then the guy walks into his house and with all his cash and he's like, yay. And then the other dude comes back and says, hey, how are you doing? He says, I'm great. I got this cash. And he goes, yeah, but where are all your jerseys? Where are all your cardigans?
Right.
And the guy says, I've got to knit some more. And then he goes, well, now you're stuck, aren't you? Because now you got nothing to sell. And the guy says, so there's a saying that goes, stick to the knitting, which is like, rather if you're good at knitting, do that.
Yeah.
And then find someone else to sell them door to door for you, and kind of work out a way to make it work. You know, it's a funny thing, and I know in the world we live in now, you have to be good at all things. Like I was talking to you earlier about hustling in the music business, you have to be able to hustle to some degree and self-promote and all those kind of things. But there's a point where the balance tips over, and you end up just doing that, or chasing your social media around the table a million times, trying to get, you know, trying to get people to come hear you sing an average song, which you should have spent time writing a better song.
Oh, that's so good. This is the kind of stuff that people need to hear, because there's so much talk about promotion, promote. And what happens is you can gain a huge following, but then when they realize you don't have something else that you've put together because you haven't created, then you're stuck, you know?
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people create a lot of content too, instead of thinking of creating great content. And the problem is nowadays with so much noise out there,
right?
If you're really wanting hardcore fans, you have to do something super special.
Yes. You know, I'm thinking right now, I've had so many friends in, you know, as magicians and comedians that are going after a big break. Like, if I can get on this TV show, then I'm going to be set. Or if I can get on this touring show, then I'm going to be golden. And they go on the tour and everybody envies them. And for 3 months, they're the biggest thing around. And then that tour ends and they didn't plan what was next after that. So then they come home and now they're just sitting waiting by the phone rather than having designed, what was the next step in their career, what was the next thing they were going to do.
It's amazing. All of these, all the kind of art or industries all seem to be the same way. Like you've got people in the music thing, they're sitting around hoping that someone's going to sign them to a record deal,
right?
And they're trying to record amazing songs in the hope that someone's going to see what they're doing and go yes.
Yeah.
But if you look at the world the way it is right now, especially with music, there's no one selling CDs. So there's less income than there used to be in the record labels. So there's no artist development money to develop artists. So then what happens is the artists end up in a situation where unless you've got a huge following or something, some reason for a label to say, oh, we can easily make money over here. If they haven't got that conversation, then if there's still a risk, basically, because they have doubts themselves as A&R guys or guys that look after people in record labels,
right?
They've seen people that are amazing artists in their mind fail completely. So then their fear is, what if I'm wrong and this guy, even though he's amazing, no one wants to buy what he's doing.
Yeah,
and so they rather take someone that's got a massive stupid YouTube video that's not even a music video, and then sign them because they know they've got people's eyes are on that person right now, and they'll sign them. We can always give them a decent song, and we can always teach them how to sing. We can always Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So it's the old days of people saying this guy's really talented. We're going to sign this guy because he's super talented. Those kind of days are almost over.
Yeah. We hear the stories of them, someone walking up to Ed Sheeran in a subway and just making him a star.
Yeah.
Those stories don't happen like that.
No.
Those stories are often, sometimes are fabricated to market
absolutely
something that came about a different way too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that there still are people doing, like, getting through, if they've got that extreme talent. But if you look at, I saw an article the other day that Atlantic Records signed some girl that was on a social media thing that she just blew up from some stupid thing. I can't remember what it was right now off the top of my head. Okay. But they signed her, and she's not a singer at all.
Really?
They signed her as an artist.
They signed her for like a record deal?
A record deal, yeah. And she's literally got no, like, they were like, I'm sure she can sing. We'll get her to sing. We'll make up something. And with the tools for production nowadays, you could get someone to sing and fix their vocal in them, immediately. Like, I've got tools in my production studio that I can make someone that can't sing, I can make them sing. Right. Especially if it's just like a pop thing and it's super just like one line, or you put a whole lot of other good vocalists on there and she just sings one,
Yep.
So it's an interesting world, man.
So what hope is there for artists?
I think the hope is that you've got to basically you've got to get people that you can trust to help you move forward and develop. And if there's people that believe in you, you got to, like the other idea of getting 1,000 true fans, and then you've got a career. So if you that whole idea of saying, I'm doing this and I'm going to get myself a following of X amount of people, and I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to create good content. I'm going to do what I do really well. Right. And then I'm either going to spend Monday to Wednesday creating just art, and then Thursday is going to be my day to do my social media stuff. Friday I'm going to see if I can go out there and chase down some bookings. Or else, if you've got someone already that you're big enough to where you can actually, or if you've got a side hustle going so that you don't have to put the pressure on your own art, then you can actually get someone else to make the money as you grow, and with like someone that makes the money from your bookings or something, because you don't need that money. Oftentimes people they have to make every cent themselves, otherwise they can't pay the bills. But then there's some people that have got something else that they're doing that's allowing them to make income so that they can grow that thing properly without it being scalped every day for,
the day job has kind of gotten a bad rap from artists. There's the old joke. I mean, every actor or actress is a waiter, and people frown on that, but there is a way to do it where, like, absolutely, what you're saying, it takes. I honestly envy people now being full-time in entertainment. I envy people who don't have their livelihood dependent upon their art, because I am constantly compromising. I'm constantly having to go, well, I'm going to do this show that I don't, feel wholehearted about, because it's going to pay the bills. But there is something where it's like, oh, If your money isn't all coming from the thing you do that you love, then you have a little bit more of a breathing room to be creative and to come up with some beautiful things. And
that's amazing. Yeah, that's a good word. Actually, there's a guy called David Wilcox. He's a songwriter, and he actually spoke. I heard this in I don't know, it was a conversation once that he had with someone. It was a podcaster, which was a live show or something I heard, and he was talking. We did actually a songwriting clinic with him, and he this is what he said. He said when you see music, when you hear music for the first time when you're young, and it suddenly really moves you. It's like you catch a glimpse of a wild horse running through a forest, and you just see it briefly, and you're like, "What was that?" And it just moves you, and you're like, "It's this wild, untamed horse." And then he says, when you get to do eventually, you walk up to it slowly, eventually you're touching it, and that's when you learn how to play music and start to unpack what it is to be musical or write songs or whatever it is. And then eventually it becomes this amazing horse that you've managed to jump on the back of and ride. And then you think that's awesome. And that in an ideal situation, that's what you do. But then when you try and make your living from this thing, then it's like taking a plow and sticking it on the back of that wild, beautiful horse and plowing a field with it every day. And it becomes a workhorse, and it loses all the mystery, and it can lose all the joy of what you first saw when you saw it. And I think that's super powerful, because if art becomes a taskmaster, which I've had before. I mean, I remember at one stage we were really struggling financially, and my son was, he was 2 or 3 years old, and we had a little drum kit in the house, and he started playing, and he was super, like, he just was on it, man. He was tearing it up, and I was like, I almost wanted to take it away from him and say, don't do this.
Wow.
Like, go and get a real job. Don't get into music. It's a dead end road. And this is from someone that's doing it full time. Right. I had this fear that music is a hard taskmaster, and heaven forbid he tries to do it as well, because he's going to be hustling his whole life. That idea. And so it can be like that to you if you don't have the margin to let it be a beautiful thing still.
Do you still struggle with feelings like that? And if so, how do you manage that? Because I know you love the music industry, but I also know that you are very aware of what goes on within it.
Yeah, I think there's both. And for me, sometimes, some days I'll wake up and I'll go, oh gosh, looks like we've been playing shows together, you and I, and we do them in the spring and we do them in the fall. And now we played our last one this weekend. Yeah. And I know that, come this, December, January, February, I've got no more of those shows.
Right.
And so then I'm like, you can panic and wake up, and think, how many records have I got to produce in this next little stretch, and what am I doing? And some stuff falls through that you're working on, and you go, oh my gosh, now there's this. And so if you get into that fear, like we were talking about before, it can start to make you feel bummed that this is what I do. Yeah. And then at that exact moment, if someone walked up to me and said, hey, here's a job that you can do that's still within the music business, or maybe not even within the music business, but I see you super talented at this. Why don't you come and do this rather? And I'd be like, yes. And then there's other times we I've produced a record, and I just worked on a friend of mine's record by the name of Philip LaRue, and he's so talented. He's got a great voice. And that day that song comes out and gets used for a TV show, and he's like, hey Dan, they've used it for the show. And I'm like, all on top of the world. If someone came to me on that day and said, hey, do you want to go do this? I'd be like, no way, man. I've got the best job on earth. Yeah. So I think you've got to be able to handle those times where, because it's an emotional thing when you're self-employed, when you're doing everything is down to you, to feel like the long run is the long-term thing of actually doing it every day. There are going to be those valleys and those mountaintop times where you're going to feel like a king of the world. Like you said, after a 3-month tour, you like of doing the comedy thing, you come back and you're like a hero, and then the very next day you could be lying in bed going, what am I going to do now? And then you could be just the despair, Yeah. And I think even the people that have made a fortune, like Michael Jackson or any of those big stars, that they are, for that 1 hour or 2 hours that up on that stage, everyone thinks they're God, and then the next day they're in their house somewhere. Right. They can't leave because everyone knows them, and they're going to feel embarrassed and weird. So then they live in a state of more of the time they're actually hating their life than actually really enjoying it. That's a weird thing.
It's so weird. I've heard so many people who have gotten to the point that they thought this is going to be great, and they go, it's nothing like what I thought it was going to be.
Absolutely. And the biggest thing for me is I always tell people, if you don't if what you're doing isn't sustainable, then eventually you're going to just run out of of grace to do it, and you're going to suddenly quit doing it, and you might quit just at the point where you were going to actually have some good breakthrough. So I always talk to people about saying, like, manage your expectations so that you don't have high expectations of how it's going to grow or what it's going to look like. You obviously want to have a vision for where you want to go with it, but at the same time, you can't just say, if I'm not, speaking to 1,000 people by next year, every night, then I'm done with this. Because then you might be speaking to 800, and in another year's time, you could be speaking to 1,000, and you'd probably be fine. But there's this. I've seen lots of bands quit when they were really talented because they had a weird idea of what their expectations were, and then I also love to say to people that are like mentoring young artists, I say to them, work out what the things are that are sucking your love for doing this out of you every time you do it. And so some people, it might be that they're not getting paid really well to go and play. Yeah. Other people don't care what they're being paid as long as they can sing their own music. That fills up their cup. Yep. And then everyone's got different pain points of what makes them want to keep doing this or not want to keep doing this. And a lot of people don't realize when they're super young at it that they're actually being every time they play, for example, through a bad sound system, it's knocking down their bank balance of desire to keep doing that. Yep. And they'll keep taking the wrong gigs for like month after month after month until one day they just go, I'm done with this, and they walk out of it completely instead of realizing early on, hey, wait, this is costing me every time I do this, so let's either not do those gigs or let's work out a way to do this so it's actually sustainable, and I need get our own PA system so that's not a problem, or hire a sound guy even though it costs some money to take it with us so our sound's always good, or right, whatever it is that's kind of causing you to lose love for what you do. And
like you said, you're weighing that balance because it might cost more to get a better system, but it's going to add more value to you as an artist and your enjoyment of it, and that's going to make a bigger difference for who you're playing for.
And I think that sustainability wise, if you just keep doing this long enough, I mean, I might be wrong, but if you just keep doing this long enough and just stick with it, you eventually will have a following, because people love to trust something that they know has been around for a while. Yeah. And sometimes the guy we see that comes out for the first time on TV, you go, that guy's hilarious. Have you heard of this guy? He's been doing that for so long before you saw him.
Oh yeah.
And to us, he's the new guy. Yeah. Especially with music.
Is that old saying that it takes 10 years to become an overnight success?
That's exactly it, man. That's exactly it. Yeah. And a lot of bands, especially, they quit like in that 7-year mark, especially in the industry. I mean, and they could have just stuck it out. And if you're a 10-year band, they say, then you're pretty much set to go, It's
so good, man. I know we got a little bit of time left, and I do, as we're talking about balance and doing things the right way, you and I both are family men. Yes. And you're a happily married guy, and you've got some kiddos, and yep. This may be selfish here, but I do think, there's a lot of guys that do what we do, either wait a long time to have families or don't have families. How do you manage who you are when you're at home so that you're present and not just exhausted from being gone? And and the other thing too, that a lot of times our work requires us traveling, but then it requires us to work when we're not traveling so that we can go back on the road. So what are one or two things that you've learned that have helped you in being a dad and a husband?
Yeah, well, first of all, I definitely think that if you don't realize that it's damaging for you to be traveling, then I think you're disillusioned. It's going to weigh heavily on your marriage if you're sleeping in a hotel for more than half of the year. Yeah. And so the thing that we came to a point on was, my wife said to me for the first 8 years when I was on the road, she used to wish that I could be home every time I was gone. And then she said when I eventually came off the road after that, she was like, I wish you'd be back on the road. So almost like it wore out her desire to have me around because of how it like wore down our marriage. Wow. And so we started getting connected to a company that's here called Porter's Call in Nashville, and they counsel people that are full-time in the music business. Oh, wow. And they do it for free. And it was actually because one of the record labels here said, I wish the people in my label would stay married. It would cause their records to be more successful, and they suddenly just bail on everybody. And then then they lose credibility and no one wants to listen to their music anymore.
Wow.
Especially in the market I was in. So this guy record labels started paying counselors to see their artists, and eventually it spread out to anyone who's in the business. And now it's like a non-profit that works and helps counseling couples. And so we started working out, where we were at, and then we started to make some rules and change some things about how we do life. And one of the things that was super helpful to me was when I'm away as a guy, you kind of do whatever you're doing. Like you go and do like a whole bunch of traveling, and then you come home, and then your wife's like, "How was it?" And tell me about it. And you go, "It was awesome. Let's go get a burger."
Yeah.
Whereas if she goes away from me and she goes to do an art show in LA, I have to sit for 3 hours on the couch while she tells me about all the different things that she did and how it was and how awesome it was. And I met this person and I met that person, and he was like this and she was like that. And then eventually, women seem to be better at kind of communicating that stuff,
right?
And so what we realized was we were living separate. We were living a lot of our lives separately from each other, and and relationships about shared experiences. So we took it very seriously and started to like when I'd come back from the road, I'd take my phone out and I'd say, "This is so and so that I met, and this is another guy and his wife that I met." And then we bump into that couple in the mall. And they'd say, "Hey, Daniel," and they'd start laughing with me, and my wife would go, "Oh, you guys are those people. Oh, yeah, Daniel told me about you guys." So she's got like this. We're still having shared experiences, even though I'm not with her those days that I'm away.
Yeah, that's good.
Which is, and it can be like purposeful. You have to be purposeful about it, especially as a guy.
Absolutely.
Say, "Hey, babe, these are the things we did. This is the people we met," and so she feels like she went on the trip too, and to some degree she did, and so that stuff, that's just sowing seeds back into our recovery of us being present with each other over the days that we technically weren't together, and it definitely helped us to kind of check in with each other quickly.
That's great, Daniel.
And the one thing that was like, if I'm in the middle of a Netflix show that I'm just loving to death, and I'm out on the road and I've got my own hotel room and I can watch it as much as I want. When I get home, it has to take self-discipline to say, no, even though I love this, and even though I've been able to do this for 4 or 5 hours a day, I have to put that on hold completely. Yep. Otherwise, I'm wandering around the house with my iPhone and like headphones, and my wife saying like, "What are you doing? You're supposed to be here." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm just so into the show." Or a book that you're reading. So you have to almost change who you are to some degree, because I'm almost like a bachelor out on the road. I come home, I need to be a family guy. And it's sacrificial. I mean, it's to make time to change everything you're doing for like a week. You do that, then suddenly next week you have to be a completely different dude. It's not always easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I learned the hard way that you cannot come home, because the thing is as fun as it can be going out on the road and hanging and all of this stuff, you come home and you're exhausted. It's long, weird hours and long travel. And I just had to force myself to not allow myself just to be lazy with the family when I get home, because they haven't had any of me. And how dare I give everyone else I'm on the road with my best and not give it to them when I get home. So,
and that's the thing, is it's so easy to do that because they're not as impressed with my jokes as the people out there. Like, I get to hang out with you guys at story time, and we just have a blast, and everyone laughs and says, "Oh, you're funny." And then I go home and I tell the joke to my wife, and she goes, "That's not funny."
That's awesome. There's something about a joke 4 hours into a hang after
yeah, exactly,
some libation.
and pretzels.
Yes, and lots of pretzels. Daniel, this has been awesome, so amazing, man. This is so incredible, and I can't thank you enough for sharing with everybody your experience. How can people get a hold of you if they want to see what you're doing or follow along? Is there a
DanielOrnellas.com is so it's Daniel ORNELLAS.com, and then we've got the Franklin Creative is the site that I have for the space that's down here, the bottom space, so they can check that out. Facebook, I guess.
That's great.
Yeah, so I mean, besides making people records, I don't have anything else that I can offer them except a little chat like this, I guess.
This is fantastic, man. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit stop here on the recording, but we can keep chatting for a bit here.